Jesus revealed the secret to being resilient and strong in life. Do you think life is hard? The truth is, it's relentless. Storms don't announce their arrival, and they often leave behind a path of destruction that feels impossible to repair. But here's the point. The problem isn't the storm, it's how you choose to face it. While many chase after temporary solutions, they forget that Jesus has already shown the way to overcome it all. In moments that redefine the meaning of courage and resilience, he demonstrated that true strength doesn't lie in controlling the chaos, but in trusting the one who holds control over everything. Think about it. How many times have you tried to fight alone, carrying burdens that crush you? The secret to being unshakable isn't in avoiding suffering, but in finding meaning within it. Jesus demonstrated this in the desert, standing firm against temptation. He showed it on a boat, in the middle of a raging storm. He displayed it on the cross, facing death itself. So, the question is, will you keep ignoring this teaching that has the power to completely transform your life? The time has come to confront the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it may be. Are you ready to discover what it truly means to be resilient? Trusting God's plan is one of the most profound demonstrations of resilience and faith. Picture yourself in the vastness of a desert, surrounded by silence so deep it feels alive, with unseen threats lurking in the scorching heat. This was exactly where Jesus displayed his unwavering faith in God when he faced temptation. There was no physical roadmap to guide him, no visible assurance that the trials would soon pass. Yet he stood firm, like a deeply rooted tree drawing water from the unseen depths. That water was his unshakable trust in the divine plan. Have you ever stopped to consider how you respond when chaos invades your life? Maybe the noise of an internal storm leaves you disoriented and unsure of where to turn. During a literal storm, Jesus offered a profound lesson in trust. On a boat, as his disciples feared for their lives, he slept peacefully, embodying a calm that seemed almost otherworldly. When awakened, he did not panic. Instead, he stilled the storm with just a few words, showing that true power over chaos comes from the inner peace born of trusting in God. This sense of calm may seem out of reach, but it is attainable. Imagine losing your job, facing a family crisis, or enduring a personal loss. These are the deserts and storms of modern life. In these moments, trusting in the divine plan means remembering that every challenge carries a greater purpose. Like a mother patiently waiting for her child to take their first steps, God lovingly guides us, even as we stumble. Jesus also demonstrated that trusting God's plan is not about passivity but active participation in what he calls us to do. In the storm, Jesus did not merely observe the winds calming, he commanded them to cease. This is an invitation for us to take action, even when we don't fully understand the why or see immediate results. It's not blind hope but intentional hope. Reflecting on our own lives, we see that trusting in God transforms storms into lessons. Think about something as simple as caring for a plant. You can plant a seed and water it daily, but you cannot force its growth. The right timing and conditions are part of the plan. Similarly, God knows precisely when to bring forth fruit, even if we cannot see what is happening beneath the surface. Perhaps you wonder if it's truly possible to have this level of trust. Doubt is a natural human experience. But consider how trust begins with small steps. It might be choosing to pray instead of complain or refusing to dwell on negative thoughts about circumstances beyond your control. These small acts of faith build a solid foundation over time. Another critical aspect of trusting God's plan is how it impacts our relationships. When we trust that God is in control, we stop placing unrealistic expectations on those around us. This doesn't mean giving up on people, but recognizing that they, too, have their own storms to face. Such understanding fosters empathy and reduces conflict. Now, think about how chaos often serves as a tool for growth. The storms Jesus faced did not merely test his faith but also taught his disciples. Similarly, the most challenging moments in our lives have the power to shape our trust. Each obstacle overcome becomes a cornerstone in building a testimony that inspires others. It's fascinating how the greatest stories of faith in the Bible emerge from adversity. Can you see how your own story might be unfolding right now? Trusting in the divine plan means believing that, even without understanding all the chapters, the ending will be glorious. And it is this trust that prepares us for the next step, where we uncover the strength found in prayer. Power of prayer. Prayer, as modeled by Jesus, is not just a ritual or a fleeting moment of reverence. It is a lifeline, a continuous dialogue with God that bridges the gap between the seen and the unseen. Imagine standing in the stillness of a garden at night, your heart heavy with the weight of what lies ahead. This is where Jesus found himself in the Garden of Gethsemane, pouring out his soul in prayer. The sweat on his brow, like drops of blood, spoke of the intensity of this connection. In that moment, prayer was not just a practice, it was his source of clarity and courage. Have you ever been in a situation where the stakes were high, and you didn't know what to do? Perhaps it was a critical decision about your family, career, or health. Jesus' example in Gethsemane shows us that prayer can be our compass in times of uncertainty. He didn't merely ask for an escape but sought God's will, demonstrating that true strength lies in aligning our desires with his divine purpose. What would it look like if you approached your toughest decisions this way? Prayer is also about persistence. Think of the times when Jesus withdrew from the crowds to pray. It wasn't because he needed solitude for its own sake, but because he understood the importance of staying connected to God. These moments were not just acts of devotion, they were acts of preparation. Similarly, in our daily lives, prayer can be the quiet preparation for the battles we face. It's like sharpening a tool before using it. Are you taking the time to prepare your spirit before stepping into life's challenges? Consider how prayer transforms perspective. When Jesus prayed for his disciples, he wasn't only concerned with their immediate well-being but also their future mission. Prayer shifts our focus from the temporary to the eternal. Have you ever prayed not just for relief but for wisdom and endurance? Those prayers have a way of changing us from the inside out, making us more resilient. Practical examples abound. Imagine you're overwhelmed by the demands of life. Instead of letting stress consume you, take a moment to pray for guidance and peace. Think of prayer as a pause button for your soul, allowing you to reset and realign with God's purpose. Even short, heartfelt prayers can be transformative. What if your first response to frustration was a prayer rather than a complaint? Prayer is not always about words. Sometimes it's about silence, about listening. When Jesus went to quiet places, he wasn't just talking, he was listening to the Father. In our noisy world, this can be a challenge. But imagine carving out just 5 minutes a day to sit in silence before God. What might you hear in the stillness? One of the most powerful aspects of prayer is its ability to create unity. When Jesus prayed for his followers, he asked for them to be one, as he and the Father are one. Prayer connects us not only to God but also to one another. Have you ever prayed with someone else and felt the bond it created? Shared prayers have a way of breaking down barriers and building bridges. Prayer also teaches us humility. Jesus' prayer in Gethsemane was a surrender of his human will to the divine. It's a reminder that prayer is not about bending God's will to ours but about aligning ourselves with his. Think about a time when you had to let go of control and trust God's plan. Wasn't there a sense of peace that came with that surrender? Finally, prayer is a source of hope. When Jesus prayed for those who crucified him, it was a testament to his unwavering love and hope for humanity. In our darkest moments, prayer can be the spark that reignites hope. What if, instead of giving in to despair, you turn to prayer as a declaration of faith in God's goodness? As we reflect on the power of prayer, we see that it is more than a habit or tradition. It is a lifeline that anchors us to God's love and wisdom. And just as Jesus showed us, prayer prepares us for what lies ahead, leading us into a deeper trust in God's plan. Serving others' resilience is not merely an act of kindness, it is a profound path to inner strength and spiritual growth. Jesus demonstrated this truth vividly when he knelt before his disciples and washed their feet. This act of humility was not just a gesture, it was a statement. Imagine the Son of God, the one with all authority, choosing to serve in such a menial way. In that moment, he showed us that true greatness is found in serving others. Have you ever considered how acts of service could transform your perspective on life? Think about the times when you felt overwhelmed by your own challenges. It's easy to become consumed by personal struggles, but Jesus' example teaches us something counterintuitive. Serving others can actually strengthen us. When we shift our focus from ourselves to those in need, our burdens often feel lighter. It's like lifting someone else's load helps us rediscover our own resilience. What if the key to overcoming your struggles lies in helping someone else with theirs? Consider practical ways to serve. It doesn't have to be grand or elaborate. Maybe it's offering a listening ear to a friend going through a tough time or volunteering at a local shelter. Even small acts, like holding the door for someone or offering a kind word, can have a ripple effect. Imagine the impact if everyone adopted this mindset. Have you ever experienced the joy of seeing someone smile because of a simple gesture of kindness? Serving others also teaches us humility. Jesus' act of washing his disciples' feet was a vivid reminder that no task is beneath us. In today's world, where status and titles often take precedence, this lesson is especially powerful. Imagine stepping out of your comfort zone to serve someone in a way that challenges your pride. What might you learn about yourself in the process? Another remarkable aspect of serving others is the way it deepens our relationships. When we serve, we connect on a heart level, breaking down walls of pride and selfishness. Think about a time when someone went out of their way to help you. Didn't it leave a lasting impression? Now consider how your acts of service could create that same impact on others. Who in your life might need a helping hand today? Serving others also reflects God's love in a tangible way. When Jesus fed the 5,000 or healed the sick, he wasn't just meeting physical needs. He was revealing the character of God. Every act of service becomes an opportunity to show others the depth of his love. Imagine the difference you could make by being a living example of God's compassion. Who might see God's love through your actions? What's more, serving others can be a source of inspiration and growth. Each act of kindness challenges us to step outside of ourselves and see the world through someone else's eyes. It's like planting seeds of hope and watching them grow in unexpected ways. Have you ever found that serving someone else actually gave you a fresh perspective on your own situation? Service also has a way of grounding us in gratitude. When we help those who are struggling, we're often reminded of our own blessings. It shifts our focus from what we lack to what we have. Think about a time when you helped someone in need. Did it make you more aware of your own reasons to be thankful? How might serving others regularly cultivate a deeper sense of gratitude in your life? Jesus' example of service also calls us to action, even when it's inconvenient. In the moments leading up to his crucifixion, he was still teaching, healing, and loving those around him. This relentless commitment to serving others, even in his darkest hour, speaks volumes. Imagine what could happen if you chose to serve, not just when it's easy, but when it costs you something. What kind of legacy might you leave behind? As we reflect on the power of serving others, it becomes clear that this is not just about helping. It's about transformation, for both the giver and the receiver. Serving others strengthens our spirit, deepens our faith, and opens our eyes to the beauty of God's love in action. And in this act of service, we are drawn closer to the source of all strength, preparing us to embrace the role of faith in our lives. Role of faith is a powerful force that can transform even the most hopeless situations into moments of triumph. Picture the scene. A storm rages, waves crash against the boat, and the disciples are gripped by fear. Then, with just a word, Jesus calms the storm, leaving them in awe. This moment was more than a display of power. It was a lesson in faith. Even a mustard seed's worth of belief, Jesus taught, can move mountains. Have you ever wondered how faith could calm the storms in your own life? Think about the woman who suffered from years of bleeding. Her condition made her an outcast, yet she approached Jesus with a simple, unwavering belief. If I just touch his cloak, I will be healed. And she was. Her faith, though small, was mighty. It teaches us that faith doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to be genuine. How often do we hesitate, thinking our faith isn't strong enough? Perhaps it's not about the size of our faith but the sincerity behind it. Faith also requires us to trust in what we cannot see. When Jesus walked on water, Peter stepped out of the boat at his invitation. At first, his faith kept him afloat. But the moment he doubted, he began to sink. This story isn't just about Peter's failure. It's about the courage to step out in faith and the grace that catches us when we falter. What is the boat in your life that you're afraid to leave? Could your faith carry you to places you never thought possible? Faith has a way of shifting our focus. When the disciples were in the storm, their eyes were on the wind and waves. It wasn't until Jesus redirected their gaze that they found peace. How often do we focus on our problems rather than the one who can solve them? Faith calls us to lift our eyes and see beyond the chaos. What might happen if you chose to focus on God rather than your circumstances? One of the most beautiful aspects of faith is its ability to grow. Like a seed planted in fertile soil, faith flourishes when nurtured. Consider the moments in your life when your faith was tested. Perhaps it was during a time of loss, uncertainty, or hardship. Those challenges, while painful, can strengthen our faith, much like resistance strengthens a muscle. What are the ways you can nurture your faith daily? Could it be through prayer, scripture, or surrounding yourself with others who encourage you? Faith is also deeply personal. Jesus healed many people, but it was their faith that made the miracles possible. He often said, "Your faith has made you well." This highlights that faith isn't about grand gestures but about a personal connection with God. What steps can you take to make your faith more personal and intimate? Another remarkable thing about faith is how it inspires others. When the woman with the issue of blood was healed, imagine how her story spread. Her faith became a testimony, encouraging others to believe. Your faith, too, can be a beacon of hope for those around you. Who in your life might need to see your faith in action? Faith also brings resilience. The storms of life are inevitable, but faith anchors us, preventing us from being swept away. When Jesus calmed the storm, he asked the disciples, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" Fear and faith cannot coexist. Which one are you choosing to hold on to during life's tempests? Faith is not a one-time decision. It's a daily choice. Every day presents new opportunities to trust God's promises. Think of it as a journey, where each step brings you closer to Him. What would it look like to wake up each day and choose faith over doubt, hope over fear? As we delve deeper into the role of faith, it becomes clear that it's not about never doubting or failing. It's about holding on, even when the path is unclear. Faith is what allows us to step out of the boat, touch the hem of His garment, and find peace in the midst of chaos. And as we embrace this faith, we prepare our hearts to understand the transformative power of forgiveness. Forgiveness as strength is one of the most profound demonstrations of strength, not weakness. Imagine Jesus on the cross, enduring unimaginable pain and humiliation, yet choosing to say, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." In that moment, He revealed that forgiveness is not about condoning wrong but about freeing oneself from the chains of bitterness and aligning with God's love. Have you ever considered how forgiveness might be the key to unlocking peace in your own heart? Think about a time when someone hurt you deeply. The natural reaction is to hold on to the pain, to let it fester. But Jesus' example teaches us that forgiveness is not for the benefit of the offender, it's for us. Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. What would it feel like to let go of that burden and find freedom in forgiveness? Forgiveness also requires humility. It's an acknowledgement that we, too, are flawed and in need of grace. When Jesus forgave those who crucified Him, He wasn't just showing divine love, He was modeling a path for us to follow. Have you ever paused to reflect on how receiving God's forgiveness can empower you to extend that same grace to others? Practical steps to forgiveness might seem daunting, but they are possible. Start by praying for the person who hurt you. It doesn't have to be elaborate. A simple, heartfelt prayer asking God to bless them can soften your heart. Then, choose to release the offense. This doesn't mean forgetting what happened, but deciding it will no longer control you. What would it look like to take these steps today? Forgiveness is also about perspective. When we remember how much we've been forgiven by God, it becomes easier to forgive others. Jesus illustrated this beautifully in the parable of the unmerciful servant. The servant was forgiven a massive debt, but refused to forgive a much smaller one. How often do we forget the grace we've received and withhold it from others? What might change if we lived with an awareness of God's forgiveness? Consider the healing power of forgiveness. Studies even show that forgiving others can reduce stress, lower blood pressure, and improve mental health. But beyond the physical benefits, forgiveness restores relationships and mends broken hearts. Have you experienced the peace that comes from reconciling with someone? How might forgiveness bring healing to a strained relationship in your life? Forgiveness doesn't mean there won't be consequences for actions. Jesus forgave, but justice was still a part of his message. Forgiveness is about letting go of the need for personal revenge and trusting God to handle justice in his perfect timing. What would it look like to release your need for control and trust God in this way? Forgiving doesn't happen overnight. It's a process, sometimes requiring daily decisions to let go of resentment. Think of forgiveness as peeling an onion. Layer by layer, the bitterness is removed until only peace remains. Are there layers of unforgiveness in your life that God might be inviting you to address? One of the most incredible aspects of forgiveness is how it reflects God's character. When we forgive, we participate in his divine work, becoming instruments of his love and grace. Who in your life might see God's love through your act of forgiveness? As we embrace the transformative power of forgiveness, we begin to see that it's not just a personal act but a spiritual discipline. Forgiveness changes us, aligns us with God's heart, and opens the door to peace and restoration. And as we walk this path, we prepare ourselves to experience the strength that gratitude brings to our lives. Gratitude resilience has the power to shift our perspective, turning struggles into stepping stones and revealing the blessings hidden in plain sight. Jesus exemplified this when he gave thanks before feeding the 5,000 with just 5 loaves and 2 fish. In a moment that could have been marked by doubt, he chose gratitude, and the result was miraculous. Have you ever considered how expressing gratitude, even in the face of challenges, could transform your outlook on life? Think about the last time you felt overwhelmed by life's demands. Gratitude doesn't deny the reality of difficulties but redirects our focus to what we do have. When Jesus lifted the loaves and fish to heaven, he wasn't fixated on the insufficiency. He was focused on God's ability to provide. How might your perspective change if you began each day by thanking God for what you have rather than worrying about what you lack? Gratitude also creates a sense of resilience. When we focus on our blessings, we become less susceptible to despair. It's like building a shield against negativity. Consider keeping a gratitude journal where you write down 3 things you're thankful for each day. Over time, this simple practice can train your mind to seek out the good, even in the midst of hardship. What might you discover if you started this habit today? Practical expressions of gratitude can also deepen our relationships. Think about a time when someone thanked you sincerely. Didn't it strengthen your bond with them? Now imagine doing the same for others. A heartfelt thank you note, a kind word, or a simple "I appreciate you" can go a long way. Who in your life might need to hear those words from you today? Gratitude shifts our focus from scarcity to abundance. When Jesus fed the multitude, not only was everyone satisfied, but there were leftovers. This is the nature of God's provision. It is more than enough. Gratitude allows us to see this abundance and to trust that God's resources are never limited. How might recognizing God's abundance impact the way you approach your needs? Another profound aspect of gratitude is its ability to cultivate hope. When we thank God for what He has already done, we remind ourselves of His faithfulness, which fuels our trust in His future promises. Think of the Israelites, who often built altars of remembrance to give thanks for God's deliverance. What are the altars of gratitude in your own life that remind you of God's goodness? Gratitude doesn't mean ignoring pain or pretending that everything is perfect. Jesus himself gave thanks even as he faced the cross. Gratitude in such moments is a declaration of faith, a choice to trust God's plan despite the circumstances. Have you ever tried thanking God in the middle of a trial? What difference might it make to view gratitude as an act of faith? Gratitude also has a ripple effect. When we model thankfulness, it inspires others to do the same. Think about the crowd that witnessed Jesus giving thanks before the miracle of the loaves and fish. That simple act likely encouraged faith among his followers. How might your gratitude influence those around you? Could it inspire someone else to trust in God's provision? Science even backs up the benefits of gratitude. Studies show that practicing gratitude can improve mental health, enhance relationships, and increase overall happiness. But beyond these benefits, gratitude aligns us with God's heart. When we give thanks, we acknowledge Him as the source of all good things. What if gratitude became your default response to every situation? As we reflect on the power of gratitude, we see that it's not just a feeling but a practice that strengthens our faith and transforms our lives. Gratitude helps us recognize God's sufficiency and opens our eyes to His blessings. And as we embrace this practice, We prepare our hearts to experience the peace and strength found in trusting His plan. Now that you know the secrets Jesus shared to become resilient and strong, the question you need to ask yourself is, what will you do with this knowledge? Life will continue to bring challenges, that's a certainty. But the difference between succumbing or triumphing depends on how you choose to respond. Are you ready to turn Jesus' teachings into action? Think about the impact this could have on your life. Finding peace in the midst of chaos, seeing opportunities instead of failures, and trusting in something greater than yourself. Ask yourself, am I truly living according to this faith? Or am I letting circumstances control me? This is the moment to act. Start small. Take a moment today to pray, reflect, and trust. Inspire those around you by showing what it means to be strong in God. And remember, you are not alone on this journey. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to keep learning more about transforming your life through the wisdom of Christ. The next step is waiting for you.